And we're back with Hip Hop's Declassified Industry Survival Guide against your boy, Mikey the Reaper. We're here with Seth, and then we have a very special guest with us today, Mr. Paul Willis. He's going to talk a lot about his experiences in hip hop and some of the music that he makes.
Word. What's up, y'all? What's going on?
It's doing good, doing good.
We're doing all right.
Fire. What you got for me?
All right, so first we want to ask, in terms of your experiences, what led you to blend hip hop with teaching?
Dope. I think this goes really all the way back to my childhood. You know, my grandmother really stressed education and thought it was super important. Two things that were important to her were, you know, being a minister in the church, but also making sure that we had the knowledge that we needed to be successful. And so, you know, it was really dope kind of being in a house that encouraged reading, right? Encouraged creative writing. My older brother was a poet. He used to write these love poems for his friends. He would ghostwrite them because his friends were trying to impress these girls in high school.
We might have to hit up your brother.
Definitely. You know, but when I saw that people were paying him for his poetry and he was winning contests and all this kind of stuff, I thought, okay, there's something here, right, in terms of using your art and creativity to kind of create something for you in the future. But I didn't know what it was, and I knew it couldn't be that at that time. But I was inspired by artists like, you know, Common, Talib Kweli, Mos Def, you know, Black Thought and the Roots. And so I wanted to tell stories about my community, about my neighborhood, and, you know, that started in school. You know, I wrote my first rap in 6th grade, you know, for a talent show. My friends, they were biting other people's rhymes. It's not a, you know, you can't do that in hip hop, but I wanted to write an original piece. And I had people who talked to me early on about authenticity and self-expression and not trying to fake the funk and be something you're not, you know. When you can be vulnerable through your work, it allows other people to be vulnerable back and connect with you. And so as I got older and started kind of working and tiptoeing into education, my first job actually taught 7th grade math at a summer camp. And
what a way to start.
You know, that was a really interesting experience. I learned a lot. But as I got into college, did more tutoring, did more mentoring, I even coached a basketball team. I realized that this was something that I wanted to do long term. But I was a political science major at the time and not an education major. So it was too late to kind of switch. So I ended up leaving school to join City Air, which is an education nonprofit that was founded here in Boston. They are an AmeriCorps program as well for folks who are familiar with that. And they place teams of role models and mentors in the schools to tutor kids in their academics, behavior, and also, you know, their attendance, behavior, and course performance. And so it was a really incredible experience because my first year with the organization actually ended up going back to my elementary school. My principal was still there. Some of the same teachers were still there. And I had a really amazing opportunity to just connect with kids who were the younger sisters, cousins, you know, nieces and nephews of people I went to school with. It was a really kind of impactful experience for me and really showed me that this is what I want to do long term. But early in my career, a lot of folks said, you know, what you do professionally cannot be mixed in and tied with what you do creatively. Right. And what I found by going out to open mics and doing shows were people who were fans of my music were fans of the things I was talking about in my music, which was community issues, social justice issues, and the like. And so they would say, hey, you talked about this student, what do they need? You know, do they need a backpack? Do they need a winter coat? You know, do your kids need food or money for field trips? And then my fans would then support the work that was going on in schools. And it became this really like symbiotic relationship where, you know, I would do a show, keep people informed. They would show up to my campus to support what was going on with students. And we would kind of create this village, you know, that provided all these different kinds of supports. And so, you know, the bar and club scene wasn't really my thing. I perform in a lot of like classrooms, community centers, just, you know, community spaces. And it was really interesting. I think as I developed professionally also, the rooms would start to change, right? Because when you're advocating for students and community, you know, you're not just talking to students and their parents anymore. You're talking to city council. You're going to the neighborhood association meeting. You're now talking with, corporate partners who want to donate money, but they're not sure where to put the money, right? And so I would literally be in a street corner cipher, one evening, the next morning, be in a classroom, and then that evening be like pitching to like a room for, $10,000 or $15,000 worth of support for some initiative or effort that was going on. And, you get deeper into my career, I couldn't have imagined some of the things that have happened, but with my last album, I had a chance to put out the album, a curriculum, and a documentary. I talked about gentrification, hip hop, and the role of artists in uplifting social issues. And that then led me to this, which is an album, a book, and a curriculum about hip hop leadership, right? And the way that we can bring more intention into the things that we create. And so, it's really special, to see what's happening in the hip hop education space these days. Some people are archiving, some people are teaching college classes, some people are starting organizations that are community-led organizations with hip hop at its core. For me, hip hop helped me develop my sense of self and critical consciousness. And so the conversations we weren't having in school around like race, class, gender, social issues, etc., were then things that I could turn to the music or those cultural settings to learn about. And so for me, it's been this interesting blend where the deeper I've got into my career, the more and more of these things are tied together.
That's real.
Yeah.
That's really dope. Just considering the dichotomous nature of hip hop and just how it's very important for us to allow for these different perspectives to come together. I think hip hop is always been a genre that's meant for social change. And so having an opportunity for people to be educated through hip hop is really important. Yeah. And so in being a hip hop teaching artist, you spoke a lot to how you use hip hop as an educational tool in your own work, speaking of your book and things like that. But what are some of the challenges? What are some of the challenges in getting hip hop accepted as a formal teaching method or just as a scholarly source?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. I think the first challenge that we got to get over is perception, right, of what hip hop culture is. Because what's being fed to us, through media and a number of different kind of outlets is that hip hop is dangerous, it's violent, it's sexist, it's homophobic, it's all of these things.
Well, all music from the youth has always been described like that too. It's like, if you speak to that as well.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing is that hip hop is a culture that was started by teenagers, right? But teenagers who haven't been given that opportunity to really grow and develop into, their adult selves. You think about the education that comes along with your entry into hip hop. If you're not being taught about, identity issues, class issues, and the like, if nobody's talking about those subjects in school or in your community or in any other space, then your music is just going to reflect that type of education and information, right? But I think as we have seen hip hop grow up, we've started to see artists really produce works that aren't that, right? And we've seen artists really lean heavy away from, the gangsterism, the commercialism, et cetera, and try to show us all something different. And so I think when it comes to the education kind of space, right, that's the first barrier to breakthrough is the misperception around hip hop. I think some of the other challenges is there's a lack of imagination amongst folks in academia around the way that this works, right? But for people who participate in the culture, there are some clear connections, and I'll name a few, right? So Marcelo was in here performing earlier. He had his hands up, right? He didn't tell y'all to put your hands up, but if you were at home and you saw somebody say, yo, throw your hands up in the air, right? Or to do a call and response, right? That's stuff that happens in the classroom all the time, right? That's a small example, right? Another kind of example is using hip hop as text, right? So instead of thinking about, I gotta read Walt Whitman or William Shakespeare or, of Mice and Men, right? What would change about my education if I could study a KRS-One in class. Right. I'm actually taking a course right now at Emerson where it's called Hip Hop Culture and the New Economy, right? And we're studying Steve Stout's book. And it's about kind of the tanning of America and how marketing and advertising changed because of hip hop and the audiences that gravitated towards this music and this culture, right? And so when you think, okay, we can shift things in education, we can shift things in marketing, advertising, and other business, it definitely shaped what was happening in the nonprofit space with me, right? But when you think about how it can change public policy, philanthropy, and the like, hip hop can do so much. We're barely scratching the surface with it. And so I think that lack of imagination amongst folks who are, part of like the established, academy, if they can't see it, I think there need to be kind of new faces and new visions to help people understand how you bridge that gap.
Right.
I was thinking also about perception. I feel like a lot of modern hip hop kind of does lean to that kind of like party scene heavily, and it's all pop. It's more pop music than anything, in my opinion, because it's not really trying to be conscious or be respective of the culture that really develops hip hop. And I feel like in many ways, if a lot of that music was tailored for a more cultural representation, it would be more impactful, because a lot of those songs are mainly just ad-libs and saying things that don't really mean anything. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if a lot of the artists took inspiration from the culture that some artists do put out that is very deep and very understanding, there could be a lot of difference with how hip-hop is perceived and how it's used as a educational format. Because I feel like when I was in high school, I always thought about I want to analyze the music that I'm listening to because the lyrics, they say important things, and those things are interesting, like the books I'm reading in class, like the English texts I'm trying to decipher. And I always wished that I could do it with music, because I felt like I listened to it so much that it was so much easier to not deceive, but to decipher what they're trying to say. Mm-hmm. And I feel like putting that in a classroom would be impactful, because a lot of those kids already listen to music like that. Yeah. And being able to tie it into the real world is something that is valuable, and it would change a lot of minds, I think, and it would be helpful for people to realize the world around them is more than just the music that is popular with hip hop.
Yeah, and I don't want to assume, but we're all fans of Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
Right? So
I can't say that. I'm sorry.
I didn't want to assume, but I'm just gonna throw it out there. To see what he did with the Super Bowl, it's a great example of what you're talking about, right? This really impactful moment, highly televised, also highly commercialized, right? But to use that time to say something, right, as opposed to using that time to just promote oneself, I think was a really interesting and cool way to engage people in this conversation who might not have been part of the conversation before. I think teachers are artists as well. What you choose to share in the classroom is the same choice that Kendrick is making on that Super Bowl stage, right? What messages do you want to get across? What books do you have your kids reading, right? What are the themes or topics of study that you want to focus on? That's really the thing that's going to shape the minds of the folks that you have in your classroom. And so, for me, teaching, artistry, it's a lot of the same thing. And even though those spaces are not, they can be influenced by capitalism and some of these kind of other outside commercial pressures and even political pressures, right? We see what's happening in the world right now. The folks in our current administration are trying to get rid of the Department of Education. Right? But we have to ask ourselves why, right? Why is education dangerous? Why are these choices to study culture? You know what I mean? Why is that threatening? Why can't we learn about everybody's history, right? And come and approach whatever we create from that point of view. And I think it's the thing that people are most scared of. Hip hop has the power to remix everything. Right? And when you do that, then you also threaten the balance of power that currently exists, or the lack of balance of power that currently exists.
And the fact that you have to question why it's, why it needs to be removed, like why education needs to be a, scary thing, it just shows how important it is, because that shows just how needed it is for people to have education like that. And I mean, hip hop music, of course, is just vocal, it's just what you hear. But something like the Super Bowl performance, something like teaching, you can have many different ways to express that. You can visualize it, you can interact with it. And I think that's a great way, like using, the Kendrick Lamar Super Bowl, that is, many different forms of expression packed into one with many different meanings, many different, types of expression. And that's what teachers can take from it and use to bridge kind of the different ways to learn, music, visuals, hands-on experience, outside of just here's a textbook and listen. And I think that's something that needs to be explored, because not everyone learns the same way.
Right.
So even just that.
Right.
And it's really dope hearing you say that too, because I personally want to become a teacher. I've currently studied music for like the past 5 years, and like now I'm starting to pivot into wanting to study education in grad school. And in thinking about it, trying to find ways to even allow the current curriculums as they exist to allow for more interpretations of music and sound overall as a basis for learning for students. I think it's very important in creating curriculums that are diverse and aren't from 20, 30 years ago will be really important towards teaching the new age of students. And so one thing we want to ask you is, what are some ways that teachers can try to pull out the artistic voice of their students? We feel like hip hop has always been a place for storytelling. It's always been a place for you to describe your story, describe your experience. Even in understanding some of the more raunchy natures of hip hop, it's always been about the story. And so how can we get more students to start telling their story in a way that teachers will be able to hear it?
That's awesome that you mentioned that. Storytelling and empathy is one of the chapters in the book. It's one of the things that I talk about. I think what's important with engaging students is creating a learning experience that's centered around them. And so then when you do that and you prioritize their voice in the conversation, you allow for those stories and pieces of information to come. I think a couple of ways that are like practical ways are to create projects, assignments, whether they're writing papers or they're doing project-based learning that helps to elevate what the student's lived experience is around whatever it is that you're learning, right? When students are engaged with thinking critically about themselves, their own identity, their local community, what's happening around them, and then the larger kind of world at large, whether that's through pop culture or mainstream media or anything like that, it gives the space for students to share so much and give the teachers so much fodder, right, to be able to shape the classroom experience. I think sometimes when we think about teacher-centered learning environments, those are spaces where teachers or professors will like lecture, right, and talk to you versus like talking with you, right? Like there's, everybody kind of knows and feels that difference. And while teachers are incredible subject matter experts at whatever it is they do, they went to school for a long time. For a long time, right? But what keeps them employed for an even longer time is their relationship with the students and their ability to translate the information that they have and make it relatable and important and engaging to the students that they have as well. Right. And so as the times change, technology changes, methods also need to change. And so I think that's how some of that happens in that particular case.
That's real. And it was really dope. It was lovely talking to you, getting an eye into what your experience has been. Also, I think it's really important that we go ahead and read scholarly articles like the Hip Hop Leadership and understand what that curriculum can do, for students. We would like to turn over, if you got an opportunity, to just lay down a few words for us. We know you're into spoken word and freestyling.
I'm super down. And then also, like, shameless plug, like if people are seeing this and they want this, you can pre-order the book right now. We have our launch party on April 29th, 2025 at Frugal Bookstore. But if you go to hiphopleadershipbook.com, people can get this right now. And if you're an educator out there and you're interested in the curriculum bundle, we have an inquiry form, so just fill that out, and me and my publisher will get back to you within like a week. And so, yeah, would love to perform and rock some stuff. I can do some stuff a cappella, but I heard that y'all were playing some beats, during the intro, and I was wondering if maybe I could kick something over that. Is that cool? Can we pull up that intro beat and I can rock something?
This is our theme song. We're ready. It's time to hear it.
I'd love to hear this. I'm ready for this.
It's the first artist to perform on our theme track, so.
It's exciting stuff.
Yeah. Let's do this, man.
Intro.
Check. How we feeling, Casper? You feeling good? Word. Let's do it. Can I tell y'all a little bit about where I'm from? Word. Yeah. Check. I went from Jamaica Plain all the way to Bodega Bay. Things were straight, 1987 and 98. Then the hits came and it's changed with the quickness. When I was 12, my grandma was diagnosed with a sickness. Books was black and white, my school was black and white. One of 13 blacks who could bridge that divide. No disrespect, my friends were upper middle class with intellect. Studying in class cause being street was easy to expect. Black but not good enough, smart but not good enough. Leader cause I've lost so much that I could erupt. It's only a matter of time before I was out of my mind. Every summer was reckless, my mom was out of a job. Brothers in and out the house, some were friends, others foes. Squares trying to keep me boxing. I stay on my toes, praying to the Lord. Is this my ceiling or my flow? Can't open the next door until the last one closed. Cause this is straight from my book of rhymes. This is straight from my book of rhymes. This is straight from my book of rhymes. Yeah, check. The Prina waits, couldn't sleep away, the dream of days, couldn't ride through Bromley Heath without a key to stay. Summer heater blaze, my OGs kept their beef away from the kids who couldn't claim the corners they patrolled. Had to move through cliques trying to crack the code. No one knew I lived, see that was tactical. I'm practically an anomaly, action, dramatic comedy. Miracle I made it out based on my geography. Constantly going back, I know my hood is proud of me. Even when we once weren't free, we're not allowed to be. Murals are coming down, a hollow became Whole Foods. Used to know all of my neighbors, now I have no clue. Like the scar next to my left eye, couldn't see this coming. Fighting to survive, the hated black kids busting. Ain't it something? My grandma owned a house when the neighborhood was Jewish, and now I can't recognize it as I walk through it. So this is straight from my book of rhymes.
I like it.
That beat is fire. That beat is fire. Appreciate you too, Casper.
So that's a wrap, guys. This was Hip Hop's Declassified Industry Survival Guide. We had with us Marcelo Trisano and Mr. Paul Willis. Great talk with them. They just got a quick word real quick of something that's happening this month.
Yeah, so we're both part of the series at Piano Craft Gallery. I'm performing on April 26th.
I'm performing Saturday, October 4th.
Yeah, so make sure to stay on top of everything at the Piano Craft Gallery. You can find my band as FM Collective Music on Instagram. Where can we find you, Paul?
You can find me at Paul Willis is Hip Hop.
There you go.
And I'm Mikey the Reaper.
I'm Seth Weintraub. This is Hip Hop's Industry Declassified Survival Guide. Thanks for coming with us.
Good morning. Peace.
Mikey.